You're listening to Factual America. This podcast is produced by Alamo Pictures, a production company specializing in documentaries, television, and shorts about the USA for international audiences. Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Alamo Pictures to be the first to hear about new productions, festivals we're attending, and how to connect with our team. Our homepage is alamopictures.co.uk. And now, enjoy Factual America with our host, Matthew Sherwood.
Welcome to Factual America, a podcast that explores the themes that make America unique through the lens of documentary filmmaking. I'm your host, Matthew Sherwood, and every 2 weeks it is my pleasure to interview documentary filmmakers and experts on the American experience. Now, today we're going to have a slightly different format. We're not coming to you from our usual studios in Spiritland Studios in King's Cross because I had the opportunity, along with producer Emmett Glenn, to attend the Global Health Film Festival recently at the very end of last year, 2019. Now, it was a great festival, spread out over 2 days. Lots of great films, including Susana, the winner of the BAFTA for Best Documentary, and also nominated for an Oscar. And by the time this podcast is released, we'll know whether they've won it or not. And we also had the chance, and thanks to the organizers there at the Global Health Film Festival, to interview 2 sets of European filmmakers who've made docs about America. Now, today we're going to concentrate on factory farming, actually a subject that we're going to be revisiting in a couple podcasts hence. But specifically today, it's more about the globalization of factory farming or corporate farming that's been going on since, certainly the 1970s, but really has taken off in the last decade or two. Now, the name of the film is Soyalism. It came out in 2018. It's directed by Enrico Parenti and Stefano Liberti. And it's Enrico that we actually get an interview with, along with Susanna Trojano, one of the producers, and she's from Elliott Films. Now, I'm sure you've heard of Enrico. He's probably best known for his feature-length documentary Standing Army, which came out in 2010, that was aired globally, but included outlets such as Al Jazeera, Fox, and the History Channel, and also was distributed widely, actually in theaters in Japan, but also in the U.S. through Amazon and Hulu. He's won numerous awards for his shorts, and we just were very fortunate to be able to basically get an interview with him after we saw the screening of his film. And if you want to know how to get more, get in touch or learn more about Enrico or even certainly Susanna from Elliott Films, do check out the show notes here. Now, before heading into the interview, we have a short clip which we will be playing, and I think it really sets the stage well about this subject. And at the very end, you'll see a graphic, or those who are more traditional and listening to the podcast, it says that the world population will surpass 9 billion, and demand for food will increase by 60% by 2050. And I think it's that statistic and the questions that come with that statistic that really drove Enrico and his colleagues and Susanna to make this film. So we're going to show that clip now, and then we're going to go straight into the interview. Meanwhile, I do hope you enjoy the interview, and thank you for listening to Factual America.
A lot of environmentalism has not taken seriously this other population bomb, that livestock populations have grown at a much faster rate than human populations have. Today, there's over 70 billion animals killed for food every year. And if the trajectory of nidification continues on the course that it's on, there will be 120 billion animals killed for food by 2050.
Welcome to a special edition of Factual America. We're here at the Global Health Film Festival in Bloomsbury, London, on the 6th and 7th of December 2019, and it's been a great day so far. It's the 6th. Some amazing films that you'll be hearing about, if you haven't already heard about them. And it is my privilege, actually, to interview our next two guests who we've just seen a film called Soyalism. And we have the director, Enrico Parenti, and we have a producer, Susanna Trojano. And so without further ado, let me welcome you to Factual America.
Hi, hello, and thanks for having us.
Yes, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you again for that film. I think it was, when did that come out? What year?
Came out at the end of 2018. We presented the movie at IDFA, which is the Amsterdam Documentary Film Festival. And from there we started on, and it's still going strong. It's still touring the world. We were just last week in Russia. We had 2 screenings in St. Petersburg and Moscow. And also we had the other week also Budapest.
Maybe you could give us a synopsis of what this film's about.
This film is about the meat industry, the growth of the meat industry, and the impact that it has on the environment, especially now that new countries are coming in factory industrial farm, which uses large amounts of soybeans, oil grains, and corn to feed the animal stock. And so we tried to simplify a big system, which especially in our case starts from China. It goes all over the way to US, where this factory farm system was invented. And then we go down in the Amazon, where in fact the soybeans comes from, most of it, especially from the south of the Amazon forest and the Mato Grosso. So it's just a movie that tries to explain what will happen when other populations, the overpopulation that will come in the near future, what will happen to our environment if we keep on eating meat, every one of us, in the way we do.
And I think Enrico undersells the film, actually. I think it is about that, but like all great documentaries, it's also about so much more, I think. Yes. And as an American, actually, it was personally poignant on 2 levels. I used to live in North Carolina, and I remember when I was a young student, it's been a while, but I remember when this was all starting, the factory farms, the chicken, started off with chicken mainly, I think, and then the pork industrial farms came in, and we all kind of knew it was happening, but yet we didn't really do anything, and people were like, well, but the people in Eastern North Carolina need jobs, and these sort of things. And then also, it's a long story, but my father, who's also American, but he was born in Mato Grosso, Brazil. Yeah. Yes, so this is like, it was all coming. The only connection I don't have is China. I've been to Shanghai, but otherwise. But isn't this? There's also other themes here. There's disappearing America, the how farming has changed, and as you say, it started in the United States, and then maybe also how maybe it's starting to going a full circle. Is it? I think you very poignantly said in the Q&A after the film, there are no easy answers, and you weren't trying to give us easy answers. But in the US, it does seem like at least there's a little bit of momentum there of trying to recapture that old way of doing things.
Yeah, sure, there is. I mean, we try we say at the end of the documentary that China, for example, it will start. The government said they will start to reduce the consumption of meat because they know their dependence is too strong. But yes, we also talk about, in fact, small farmers. What is their role there? The momentum, as you say, it's really strong now in Europe and in US because we are finally realizing that this super consumption of luxury food, as we should call them, because meat is a luxury food, is something that usually starts when you get out of poverty, and it's actually something that started in the 50s, because before that we used to eat something like a third of the meat that we used to eat, And so now we have all these companies, luckily, they're trying to find solutions, plant-based solutions to meat or in vitro meat, especially in the US. And I think it's a good thing.
No, I think that's. I agree. I think we have a sister company that also does things. It's called Texas Real Food, and they also it's a network of organic farmers and also restaurants that source. So you can go on there, and you can find out that restaurant, where does it source its food, and you can find out which farmer that is providing the beef and which one is providing the produce and these sort of things. I mean, you make an interesting point. When I was growing up, my father used to always make the comment they only had a chicken on Sundays and they didn't eat meat the rest of the week. And we've gotten so used to this. My own children think you have to have meat every day practically. You're mentioning organic farming. Do you see this? You said in Western Europe, certainly the U.S. Do you see anything like this happening? Well, I guess it's what we have is the other countries haven't even gone through the whole agricultural development that the West and the U.S. have gone through. And so this is, I think, the point of the film, that it's not just about China. It's about all these other countries that are up and coming.
Yeah, certainly each one of us is on a different level of consciousness nowadays. And but I was pretty surprised in China because we found many organic farms which were trying also to do pork in a better way. But obviously their scale was very, very, very small, and it wasn't like in the US where you had already a chain that was integrating this new farming system. And then we have all the other countries that some people told us even that India now it's one of the main exporter of cow meat, even if cows are sacred. But apparently the Muslim population, it's their own business in India.
Well, as a business school professor said a few years ago of mine, he said, the answer to every question is China, China, India. And so I think that's sort of gets to that point. I mean, Susanna, as a producer, how did you get involved with the project, and what were maybe some of the experiences you would like to share?
This documentary is a documentary that has a long story, because it started more or less 6 years ago as an idea, just an idea, and a meeting with another author. And Enrico and Stefano started filming. But actually, we didn't have found. We had just a little found just to go in different countries. Actually, only 2. And then, as Enrico said before, the project stopped for 1 year, maybe 1 year and a half, because we needed other founds just to close the documentary, because we wanted to show another example, a positive example, or a kind of hope in this research. And so we got small found from foundations, and Pulitzer, for example, helped us to go to Mozambique. And so this project is started as a small project, and then now we have a documentary that we shot in 4 continents. And we have 3 organizations and private. So it's not a proper a normal production for documentary, because the topic, it's hard to support. For example, from Italy we had just a small fund for distribution, not for producing the film. So in Italy it's really often the Italian support the distribution and not the producing process, because I think they want to see if the documentary has success,
right?
And then we can distribute it. Otherwise, not.
You say it's kind of a hard story to sell, I think, to some people. But who came up? I mean, because it's such a gripping film. How did you come up with this? Where did the idea come from? Did you just read an article one day?
Well, no, it started all because I did a documentary on U.S. military bases around the world, and I met up with Stefano, which is the co-director, and he just wrote a book on land grabbing. So at the beginning, we wanted to do something about land grabbing, but it was very difficult to find places where the land grabbing actually happened. Yeah. Because there were a lot of projects in 2013, 2014. A lot of people were talking about land grabbing in Africa, but then we didn't see much of it with our eyes. We just saw small projects starting that were very much exaggerated in the European press. So we started to think that maybe the best thing to do would be like, who will produce the food for the 3 billion people that will come in the next 30 years? That was the main question at the beginning. In fact, the title at the beginning was The Overpopulation Business, in the sense of who are the big...
Who profits from...
Who's going to profit from this overpopulation that will come in 30 years? That was the title. That title stuck with us for a long time. That's what made me and Stefano get together, because we didn't know each other. And he saw my documentary on a military base. I read his book on land grabbing, but we had this title that we thought was a cool idea to develop. And we thought a lot about it for a long time. We actually did another documentary while waiting for some funds to produce this movie. And at the end, when we discovered that most of the oil grains come from South America and go to Asia in general, and especially to China, we were pretty shocked, because through China, we saw this new wave of investments that were going into the U.S., especially the Smithfield acquisition, which was at the time the largest acquisition of a Chinese company into the U.S., which if it didn't had a Senate hearing, because they were even saying now we're going to have a Chinese communist company in the U.S., and so they had to think about it for a long while. They didn't have the green light straight away. So that thing got us very interested in China, this Smithfield acquisition, because we were saying, but why should a Chinese company pay that much money to buy a company? And then that's what we try to explain in the movie, that we show that if you allow a company like Smithfield to grow as it grows and buy all the other small companies in the past 20 years, then it becomes a target for somebody else, which just gets in at the last moment and buys it all. So it becomes just the whole agribusiness system is becoming more and more conformed. I mean, it's homogenized, and fewer and fewer companies are investing in. And China was just so interesting, because China really did a lot of buyouts in the U.S. I think Syngenta, I don't remember if Syngenta is a U.S. based. It's half of the. It's not U.S. based totally, but it has a big part of it in the U.S. because it was developing.
We'll have our researchers look into this, but no, I think sometimes these ownership structures are becoming more and more complicated, and so it's not even. I mean, it's another storyline is this sort of. Not so much nationalism, but this idea of sovereignty and food sovereignty, and how different, the Brazilians are complaining about the Americans and the Chinese, and the Americans are complaining about the Chinese, and everyone's complaining about someone, and Mozambique's complaining about the Brazilians. And I think, but, it's becoming such a globalized world that I think it's very, it's hard to, things are never black and white anymore.
Yeah, in fact. Yeah, it's even hard to find where the investors inside a company come from. And now every company has stockholders, big stockholders from other companies that we don't know until they try to buy it out, or just the CEO changes.
So I think that's a very good point to take a break.
You're listening to Factual America, Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Alamo Pictures to keep up to date with new releases and upcoming shows. Check out the show notes to learn more about the program, our guests, and the team behind the production. And now, back to Factual America.
Welcome back to Factual America, where we are coming to you from the Global Health Film Festival. We've been here with Enrico and Susanna talking about Soyalism, the film that they've screened here at the festival. And I think, as I think we discussed earlier, this podcast is sponsored by Alamo Pictures, which is a new company that's looking to do documentaries about the U.S. from a European perspective. Well, we have two Europeans here. Do you find any challenges? You mentioned a documentary you've done before about the U.S. military bases, but going to the U.S., going to places like Eastern North Carolina, Iowa, is there a benefit to being European, and what are some of the challenges you face?
I think the most challenging part for us, it's especially distribution in the U.S. It looks like I'm starting to think that the U.S. doesn't like a lot when other people from other countries talk about the U.S. because, in fact, we had a very wide distribution worldwide. I mean, a lot of televisions bought our movie. We had screening everywhere, but we really had a hard time making an impact in the U.S. And that's very strange because at the end, as you saw in the movie, we have almost 25 minutes of the film is based in North Carolina, and it's a very big problem there. So that was the hardest part. I mean, shooting-wise, no, it wasn't that difficult. I have to say that I am half, even if I don't speak a perfect English, I am half American in the sense, that my mother was from New York. I have grown up in Italy all my life. I just lived in the U.S. 1 year when I was about 20 years old. So I mean, I'm usually not scared to go in the U.S. I'm more scared of the police usually when they stop me on the road because we hear all those.
We all are.
I hear all this horror story and
just don't speed. That's all. Especially in Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah,
that's how I have my own experience. But yeah, don't speed.
The only thing that I'm scared in the U.S. is to be stopped by a policeman, especially while we're shooting, and they say, "What are you doing here? Why you're not doing this?" I even get a third grade interview every time I go through the immigration service, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Yeah, what I'm doing here, I have an American passport, just going in. And they say, "Yeah, but why are you coming in?" I'm coming in because I want to go and see my relatives. I don't know. But yeah, no, it isn't difficult to shoot in the U.S. It's difficult, I think, to get into the film society. It seems that, I don't know, I think it's made in a way that it's very easy to see for an American person. It talks about the things, about meat, it's also a good movie for vegetarians or people who lean towards eating less meat. But we also put this into a context of a world context system. So I don't know. I really don't have a difficulty in distribution. Yeah.
Okay. But with the locals, they were very open to you to coming in and filming, and I mean, I noticed most of the people we were talking to, certainly in North Carolina, were more activists. And things.
Yeah. In fact, we were helped a lot by the water keepers that really supported us. They made us available a plane to fly above the factory farms. They gave us that guy that was going around with us, the guy with the beard who was just driving us all over North Carolina to see the people that you saw in the movie. And so with them was pretty easy. Then in the U.S., we always find these intellectuals that we try to interview, and it's luckily if they're passionate about it, they are always very willing to speak and get into a documentary.
But that's interesting what you say about distribution, because one thing we've been doing is, as part of this, we've been researching documentaries. A lot of people are saying this is a golden age of documentary filmmaking. And when looking at ones that some of the best, at least what we think are the best ones about the U.S., they're all always American-made. Yeah. But yet there's this long history of, in human history, of outsiders being able to come in and maybe seeing something with a different eye. And it is, which is great about coming to this festival, because we've got at least 2 films, if not more, that are people with a European perspective who've made films that have something to do with, the U.S. is a large portion of this, obviously. It's not just strictly a U.S. picture. But I think maybe that is something that maybe, I don't know, we'll have to work on changing.
There's no agreement between the US and European countries, for example, for co-production. So, yeah, you can apply for the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, but in the other case, as she said, you need a fiscal sponsor. It's always a bit more difficult. I was in Amsterdam last week, and I was talking with all these filmmakers, and everybody said the same thing, that it seems that grants in the US for filmmaking go or to developing countries or to US-based filmmakers. And so, yeah, we actually do have an academic distribution in the U.S. because it's been showed in university, the film. We also showed it before the UN Climate Summit in New York. Stefano went there, and we showed parts of the movie and the excerpts, and he talked about it. So we had a little bit of, but it seems more like the festival filmmaking community that doesn't, I don't know, accept it.
So no luck with Sundance or South by Southwest or any of these typical ones?
Not even the festival in North Carolina, which is, yeah, we were pretty impressed that they didn't take us at that festival.
Impressed.
In a bad way, because it's a very good festival, and the movie also screened for the first time in IDFA, which for documentary, only for documentary, is probably the best festival there is in the world. So that's also makes it easier sometimes for the other festival to accept it.
I wanted to add that we received a lot of requests from a bottom-up, I would say, requests from organizations, small organizations from Italy, but also in other countries, European countries. For example, in Holland, we did like 10 screenings, but not from festivals, okay, related maybe from IDFA, but maybe small, I would say, citizens organizations. So people, yes, or farmers, small farmers organization. So that they wanted to show the documentary to the neighbors, I would say. So that's nice, because we know that this topic is many people are concerned about. So we got from people like this, from universities, some festivals, but we thought, okay, we can do also from America the same kind of requests.
Well, hopefully that will change. And I guess, obviously you want as many people to see this as possible, but I think it must be at least a good sign, or make you feel better, that at least if you've got a lot of grassroots organizations wanting to see it, then that is maybe part of what you're trying to achieve. Well, I think it's at least hard for me to believe. I think we've already been chatting for almost 30 minutes here. So I would like to, thank you again. But before we sign off, maybe what projects are you working on now, or anything else in the pipeline?
It's secret.
It's a secret. Well.
Wonderful secret. Yeah.
It's just that it gets difficult to do movies like impact movies, because now people search you. So as soon as you ask for an interview, the people search you on the internet, and
interesting.
And see what you do, how you think usually, what kind of point of view you have, and it gets more difficult to do new documentaries.
Okay. Well, Enrico and Susanna, I just want to thank you again. The film is Soyalism. If someone's sitting at home, how can they see this film? Is it available online, or?
It's gonna be online on Amazon in the US, I think, pretty soon. I think it's still not online, but it's gonna be. I think from January it's gonna be on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we don't usually make plugs for particular places, but I think it's important for people to see this film. So, again, thank you, Enrico Parenti and Susana Trojano.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And this is Factual America signing off.
You've been listening to Factual America. This podcast is produced by Alamo Pictures, specializing in documentaries, television, and shorts about the USA for international audiences. Head on down to the show notes for more information about today's episode, our guest, and the team behind the podcast. Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Alamo Pictures to be the first to hear about new productions, festivals we're attending, and to connect with our team. Our homepage is alamopictures.co.uk.